Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to week 19 of the WiggyWam Get Your Property Questions Answered webinar. Really pleased that the new year has started well for many of you who are part of the amazing WiggyWam community, and wish you a very, very happy new year, and may this one be the most prosperous year that you've ever had on record in business. And for those of you that are moving home, I hope that your house move goes without any kind of delays or upsets or any kind of complications that would otherwise hold you back and cause you to be stressed out in the process. So let's hope that 2023 brings some amazing things for us all. I do know that the market is subject to quite a few challenges at the moment, depending upon where you are in the country, and certain reports of the housing market slowing down or prices starting to drop, which is mainly the asking prices starting to drop across the country after a period of about probably 18 months of an intense market since the pandemic hit in March, April 2020, and things went a little bit crazy after everybody was locked up in their homes for a certain period, and afterwards the housing market obviously started to get a lot busier and a lot faster. But now that heat has started to dissipate out of the marketplace, and things are probably going to return to a more sensible level. So I'm hopeful that we've got a more stable market to work with, and as such, there should be less of a burden on solicitors in order to allow them to put their deals through as quickly as possible, rather than taking on too much work where they can't actually cope, and consequently that having a knock-on impact in terms of the timescale for which transactions take to go through. I'm hearing on the whole it's around about 5 months now for a deal to go through from offer to completion, which I think is probably about 4 months too long, if you ask me. But what can we do in today's day and age? It requires a number of solicitors and estate agents to start to change their way of thinking, with a view to looking at, not just getting the deal sold or sold subject to contract, shall we say, from an estate agent's point of view, but what needs to be done to actually manage that process through to exchange of contracts as quickly as possible. And I know a lot of people work very, very hard. A lot of agents work incredibly hard to keep the deals together and try and get the deal through to exchange of contracts as quickly as possible. But in my experience, there is still so much more that can be done for estate agents and solicitors alike in order to try and speed up transactions, but ultimately to help them win more instructions. And this is something that I talk about intensively within the Estate Agent Secrets Trilogy book series, which is kind of an insight, if you like, into what I would look at as the new way of doing estate agency and conveyancing. Ideas and tips and tactics that you can employ, whether you're a conveyancer or an estate agent. If you're a conveyancer, you can definitely worth reading this book. But from an estate agent's point of view, where you're looking to build a more profitable business model within a estate agency or letting agency, it really does come down to harnessing the power of the secrets that we share within the book. But one of the main secrets would be to look at what you're doing as far as social media marketing is concerned. And this is something that I think is really going to continue to grow as a massive area where you can share your expertise in a way that gives the general public a greater insight into who you are as an agent and how you can help them. And what I mean by that is, imagine looking at the customer journey for, let's use an estate agent in this example, but for the customer journey to choosing an estate agent is a very short-lived thing. And if you think about how most people operate, they'll go to the internet and they'll search maybe 3 estate agents in their local area. They'll ring those 3 estate agents up, or they'll send them an email, they'll book an evaluation, and then the entire process of them putting their most prized asset into the hands of a capable estate agent takes place through a very short customer journey, which is the interaction initially to book the appointment, and then moving on to the actual valuation itself, or the market appraisal, whatever phrase you want to use. Once they go into that next stage, you've got about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to convince the seller that you're the right agent to work with. And that can be a very short customer journey. And maybe you follow it up in writing, and maybe you do some interaction afterwards with them. But in my experience, you're leaving an awful lot to chance if you're not embracing some of the things that we talk about within estate agent secrets, particularly the social media marketing side of things, which most people get overwhelmed and think, well, how do I do social media marketing? I don't know what's involved. How can I demonstrate all of my knowledge and value to people when, you know, there's younger agents out there that don't have the experience, but they're somehow using the social media thing to get more clients, right? And what I can share with you briefly is that the power of social media marketing lies in allowing a potential client or customer to get to know you better before they actually choose to instruct you. And that can be by offering a lot of value to them in advance of them actually picking up the phone and contacting you for evaluation, or deciding that they're going to put their house on the market. Who do they approach? And that can be done in such a subtle way that if you're providing valuable content, and where I see a lot of agents go wrong, let's clear this one up straight away. Where I see a lot of agents go wrong is they pump out content on social media, which is all about, well, we're the best agent in the area because, we've got the most boards up, or we've, sold the most property this month. That really doesn't mean a lot to your ideal client. Let's be honest about it. And the reason I say that is because what they want to know is, can you manage their expectations from day one and get the deal done in the time frame and at the price that means that they achieve their objectives? Are you trustworthy enough, and can they feel heard when they sit down with you and tell you exactly why they've decided to sell their property and exactly what they want to achieve as a result of selling their property? Because, it might not be that they just want to sell it to, buy another property. They might want to move abroad. They might be divorcing. There might be all sorts of things that sit in the background as to why they want to sell that property. And that obviously because you're an estate agent, you deal with it day in, day out. But can you demonstrate your knowledge and expertise in such a way that it piques their interest and lets them know that you are the man or woman for the job, and they're better off putting their prized asset in your hands and allowing you to handle it for them? And I think that's absolutely fundamentally crucial to grasp. And we walk you through the entire process within Estate Agent Secrets on how to start with your content system and how to put that out there in a way that's both cost effective and useful, and will help clients identify with you as a key player to help them achieve their objectives. And we've actually built a lot of this into the WiggyWam platform itself. So I don't think you've got to do all of this stuff and then post it out there online to crickets, which is what a lot of people get. They do some of this content, they put it out online, and then what happens is they don't get any interaction, or they get very little interaction. And after a couple of weeks of this, they give up, right? Because they just think, well, this isn't going anywhere. It's not attracting me any clients. I can't see an immediate reward or return on time invested. So therefore, I'm going to give up, and I'm going to spend my time doing other things, or I'm going to go back to the status quo. And unfortunately, I see this with a lot of agents where they put their content out online, and it can happen with a lot of other professionals as well. They're just not getting the interaction. And this is where WiggyWam again will come in to support you, because we're actually growing our network in terms of the number of people that are coming to the site, the number of visitors. And I'm very pleased to say that we are literally 3 viewers away from one of our videos hitting 1,000 views, which is incredible for a new property platform that's getting started up. And we're getting more and more people coming to the platform every day. So to see that sort of interaction with our videos, with our Get Your Property Questions Answers webinar is absolutely incredible. And it's by following the process that we outline within this book that actually really will help you to cement the sort of exposure process that we talk about within the book, and also to help you to really put your business front and center above the competition, so that you've got a better chance of not only just winning the business, but actually getting it at a much higher profitable fee, because you're demonstrating your expertise and you're creating desire. And not only that, you're doing this in such a way that it gives you a 24/7 content machine. And a lot of people think, well, why should I bother doing this? Because I'm providing all this information for free. Usually I'm putting it out there. I might not get any response to it. It can take weeks or even months to start to build that bit of an audience and a following. But if you think about it, you've already got an audience and a following because you've got a mailing list, okay, which is full of potential buyers or potential sellers who want to know more about your expertise, and you can start to release this content out to them. And then again, plugging into something like WiggyWam, where you can start to release more and more content and information and put it in such a way that it really does resonate with the potential sellers, and they can see a value in working with you as opposed to working with your competition. So I just wanted to give you that bit of an outline, because I think it's going to be essential within 2023 as the market starts to get tougher, to not only demonstrate your value, but also to put yourself in a position where you're demonstrating that value to a point where you can rapidly increase your fees to a much higher percentage, rather than doing what everybody else is doing, which is overvaluing, underfeeing, and just hoping for the best, because you're on all the portals and every other agent is also on the portals. So what's the difference that makes the difference between you and your competition? And I talk about that extensively within the book, that if you sit back from the current customer journey that you allow your customers to go through before they decide to instruct you, what you will see is that it's unlikely that your customer journey differs from your competition. And it's until you start doing something different and radically thinking different to your competition, that's the only way that you're going to get the breakthrough. So I hope I've explained that fairly and correctly, and you've got some really good information from that. But if you want more information on estate agent secrets, let me know. I'll happily send you a copy of this book. We are going to be doing some promotions on that during the course of, I think, probably January, early February as well. So whilst that is on Amazon at £47 at the moment, we are going to run some promotions on that, so you can get your hands on a copy of that fairly soon. So look out for that. But again, I want you to, if you're serious about making 2023 a really good year, you need to plug into that content system in such a way that you can start to add value to your customers before they've even come on board with you. And that's the way that you'll get the breakthrough, and it'll be the difference that makes the difference, I believe, in your business going forward. So just wanted to share that with you, and let's crack on with this week's question. So first question comes in from Neil. Hi there, Neil. Thank you for your question. So Neil says, my estate agent sold my house really quickly after only one viewing, so I don't think I should be paying them their full commission, as they haven't had to advertise the property much or do much work to find a buyer. Am I entitled to a discount on their fee? Well, thank you for the question, Neil. Great that you've managed to sell your house really quickly, and the estate agents obviously worked hard, I'd like to think, to achieve that. I'm going to shoot from the hip on this straight away, Neil, and I'm going to tell you it's unlikely that you'll get a discount on the fee. And it's also probably going to be a little bit unfair to ask for that. And the reason why is because a lot of people have the mistaken thought process that the estate agent's job is just to agree the sale, right? And once that's done, the sold board goes up and people think, oh, I've sold my house, right? But unfortunately, Neil, until you've actually exchanged contracts, that deal is not legally binding. Any party can pull out at any time during the course of negotiations or the legal work. And in my experience, again, a good estate agent is worth their weight in gold when it comes to helping you manage a sale through to completion. Okay, that is where the majority of an estate agent's work is actually done. Taking nice photographs, doing a floor plan, producing sales particulars, getting the property online. That's probably, if I'm honest, about 25 to 30% of an estate agent's work. But the bulk of the work is actually successfully managing it through all the hurdles that will crop up, whether it's legal pitfalls or hurdles that will crop up in terms of difficult questions that need to be answered, or finding out bits of information, or relaying information. Because again, as I mentioned in the introduction here, Neil, if the average sale is taking about 5 months to go through, that's an awful lot of time where people have to manage their expectations and make sure that people don't get frustrated so that they end up pulling out of the deal. Okay, so I think if you're working with an estate agent, and it sounds like you might have got a traditional estate agent who works hard at what we call nurturing the relationships. So, excuse me, they'll have a database of people that are looking for properties. It's called their mailing list, and most agents will work that mailing list quite hard to find or to match people with property. Okay, and once they're matched with those properties, that's when they then are successful in agreeing the deal and getting it across the line as soon as possible. And for that, that's really what you're paying them for, is to match you with the right buyer, and then to get that deal through to completion. And as I say, that could be weeks and weeks and weeks of chasing just to make sure all the information is in place in order to allow it to go through. And I have seen, well, when you consider that at least 1 in 3 sales will fall through, you could get right up to the 11th hour, the day before, or even on the day when you're due to exchange contracts, and the whole deal could fall apart. Now, God forbid this won't happen to you, but if that does happen, and the estate agent's done all of that work for 4 or 5 months to try and get you through to an exchange of contracts, and the deal falls through, then they're going to have to remarket the property. They're going to have to start all over again in terms of trying to find you another buyer and then manage the process all the way through to completion. And I think it would be a little unfair if they then came to you and said, do you know what, actually, I think we need an increase in our fee because, we've now had to do all the work twice. There's not a seller on the planet that would, go to their estate agent and say, "Oh yeah, please charge me more money," when we've already agreed a fee up front. Okay, so I think it's unfair to ask for that reduction, because this is the risk that the agent's taking on your behalf in order to secure the buyer and also get the whole deal through to completion. So I hope that helps answer the question, Neil. Sorry that it's not perhaps the news that you wanted, but I did encounter this a lot in my career as an estate agent. And I remember one girl, bless her, we sold her house really, really quickly. And we'd built a great relationship. She'd been looking for several months before she actually put her house on the market. We built a really good relationship, and I think we sold it within, let's say, 48 hours of it going on the market, or agreed the sale, should we say. And then it was all the work to manage. And she came in literally the day after we'd agreed the sale and said, "Look, you sold it really quickly. I think you should reduce the fee." And I said, "Well, yeah, but there's all of this work to do yet. And I don't think it's fair to ask for a reduction." And she looked a little bit dejected, but we did have to work bloody hard to get that deal across the line, So it's not as straightforward as people necessarily think, but it's kind of this. This is the risk that the estate agent takes. Some houses will sit on the books for months before they actually sell. Some will sell within days, and others won't sell at all, no matter what the estate agent does. So it is the risk. It is their business model. It is how they price their services. And unfortunately, or fortunately for you, you've sold your house quickly. Let it ride out, and all being well, it should go through to completion, and you'll be moved, and you'll be happy that you chose a good estate agent who was obviously worth their money and got you moved, as was the original agreement in the first place. All right, Neil, so best of luck with that. Hope it all goes well. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help and support you, and I wish you all the very best of luck. All right, thank you. So moving on, question number 2 comes in from Samantha. Hi there, Samantha. Thank you for your question. Samantha says, "I am selling a property for the first time and wanted to know, if my buyer pulls out before the exchange, will I have to pay the solicitor's fees all over again, or do they put their work on hold until I find a new buyer?" Well, that's a great question, Samantha. Thank you for that. Always a bit nerve-wracking when it comes to being the first-time seller. So not only, is it nerve-wracking being a first-time buyer, but then being a first-time seller, and you're kind of a little bit haunted about what could possibly go wrong when you're putting your property up for sale. Now, you haven't mentioned this in your question, and I'm presuming that you haven't got a seller's pack in place, which is ordinarily where you would pull together a lot of the information about the property before you put it up for sale. And that would be helpful for your buyer to be a more informed buyer and have access to a lot more knowledge and information before they put their offer in. And this is where a lot of deals run the risk of falling through, because ultimately they haven't, the buyer has had to make a decision based on limited information, which, they may have made a different decision were they to have more information up front. Okay, and that's really the purpose of a seller's pack, is to try and eliminate as much as possible the idea that the buyer might pull out or change their mind before we've actually got through to exchange of contracts, which is the legally binding part of the deal. Okay, now one of the things I'll say with you for you, Samantha, is it sounds as though it's early enough in you putting the property up for sale that you could get what we call a protect your pocket policy in place. And the reason I suggest you do that is because the whole idea of the protect your pocket policy is to protect you that, again, God forbid your sale falls through, then any money that you paid out for solicitors or, anything on the purchase of the property that you're going to buy or anything like that, that policy will pay out and cover your legal costs up to £2,000 or potentially more, depending upon the level of cover that you go for. All right. Now, if it's too late in the day and you haven't been able to put that protect your pocket policy in place, then the only thing that you can do is actually talk to the solicitors that are acting for you. And again, in my experience, it's pretty much whether they will agree to put everything on hold until you find another buyer and then pick everything back up and start again. And they may ask for a little bit of an increase in the fee to cover the work that they've already done, or they may want to invoice you for the work that they've already done and then knock it off any future bill that they present to you should you go back to them and decide to sell the property through them again. It really does depend. Practice to practice can vary very differently depending upon what their policies are. So I would say it's worth a conversation with the solicitor's firm to see which way they will roll with it. It sounds as though, again, we're talking hypothetically, and obviously you just want some level of reassurance because this is your first time of selling a property and you hear all these horror stories that 1 in 3 sales may fall through. That could cause you a potential problem. But if you've got your protect your pocket policy in place, that will limit your downside in terms of exposure to fees, because we had somebody on a webinar a few weeks ago, Samantha, and they'd lost 5 buyers in a row. Now, I'm not trying to say that to frighten you, but the point is, if you lose one buyer and the deal falls apart, you then have to put the property back on the market. You then have to advertise it, find another buyer. Then you get another buyer and it goes into solicitor's hands. If you lose that second buyer, you've already paid for part of the legal work once. You paid for it a second time. Then you can start to see that these costs can mount up significantly. And, I forget what the statistics are in terms of the average amount of savings that most people have in the UK, but it's something like, £7,000 or £8,000. It's not a huge amount of money. And so, if you're forced to pay out £500 or £1,000 to a solicitor because of the fact that your deal's fallen through, so through no fault of your own, then, wouldn't it make sense to have something in place that would cover you and pay out that, God forbid this happens, it puts you in a very stable position financially so that you're not penalized for somebody else's behavior or change of heart. Does that make sense? So it's something that I would certainly think about doing, and definitely have that conversation with your solicitor to sound them out, see what they would do in that sort of a situation. And hopefully it won't be a penalty. Hopefully it won't be, they won't be difficult with you about it, but definitely get your protect your pocket policy in place, because that will just, cover you, God forbid anything else untoward happens. All right. Also might be worth you having a read of Home Buyer Secrets, Samantha, if this is your first time of selling. I do provide a ton of information in that book to help you manage the process. And also, if you're, I don't know whether you're thinking about buying after you've sold this property, but if you are, it's definitely worth having a read of that to be prepared and, to be armed with all the right information before you go forward on a property purchase or a property sale, just so that, there's a lot of pitfalls in buying and selling property. And if you're not sure what they are, they can come along and bite you on the bottom, and they're expensive to manage all the way through. Whereas if you've got some of the things in place that I talk about within Home Buyer Secrets, you're better protected, and it'll make your journey a lot more smooth and easier, because forewarned is forearmed. You know what I mean? So hope that helps, Samantha. I don't want this to turn into a shameless plug about the services that we offer, but we have analysed the home buying and selling process from shall we say, a 30,000 feet level to understand where all the pitfalls are and how best you can protect yourself as you go forward, because it is fraught with complications. It is a minefield out there. It is taking longer than ever to get a deal through to completion, and you just want to be covered and protected as best as possible. And the only way you can do that is through educating yourself and then putting a couple of things in place that we talk about within Home Buyer Secrets to really help you out. So good luck with that one, Samantha. Hope it all goes well, and let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help. All right. Okay, moving on. Question number 3 comes in from Ravi. Hi there, Ravi. Thank you for your question. So Ravi says, we just rented out a property we were initially going to sell, so we are complete novices. Are we legally required to include white goods such as a fridge, freezer and washing machine and other appliances when letting out? There is a cooker and oven, but we sold the other goods when we were looking to sell. We let the property as unfurnished, and the tenant saw exactly what was included when he viewed it. He hasn't been in the UK long and is now demanding that we provide these goods. Do we have to do this? All right, Ravi. Well, thank you for your question. Falling over my words here at the moment, but just wanted to acknowledge you on that question. It sounds to me, Ravi, as though you're what we call a self-managing landlord. It sounds as though you're actually taking the management of the property on yourself, and you may have done the tenant find yourself. And this is something that I would strongly recommend in your position, Ravi, that you find a good managing agent in your local area to manage the property for you. And the reason why I mention this is because the law is constantly changing, and there are so many pitfalls and so many things that can go wrong that you want really a third party in place to help you manage that and stay on the right side of the law, and also to take the friction out of any potential relationship headaches that you might have between a landlord and a tenant. Now, I'm not saying your tenant's trying to make your life difficult. I don't know all the situation. You say they've not been in the UK long. There is an expectation that he is demanding that you provide these white goods. And I would say, from my own personal experience, you're not legally obliged to provide them. But what you want to think about, Ravi, is, do you want to make your tenant's life easier, or as easy as possible, and cement a sound working relationship with the tenant by trying to help them? Or do you want to just sort of say, well, it was rented in the condition that you saw it, you were happy to take it as it was, and therefore we're not providing any of the white goods for you? It really does depend how you want to manage that relationship going forward. If I was in your shoes, Ravi, what I would do, I would actually look to put some appliances into the property if I felt that it was going to help oil the wheels of the relationship between you and the tenant, and make sure, more importantly, that they pay their rent on time in full every single month. Okay. Now, that is more important than anything else being a landlord. If this is the first time that you're being a landlord and you're renting a property out, then I can tell you that tenants that don't pay, or that are late in paying, or that don't pay in full, or that start to get cute and know the law and understand that the eviction process is getting harder and harder for landlords, then it could be that this tenant moves in and they might pay their first month's rent and deposit up front, and then you never get another penny out of them for the entire time that it takes you to evict them. And that could be longer than 6 months. It could be 12 months. It could be even longer still, depending upon the court system and how well the tenants play the game, as it were. But you want to be very careful. And I'm not saying this as a gun to your head that you've got to do what the tenant asks. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you need to get some professional support in there, such as a competent letting agent who's going to help manage that relationship through to successful ending of the tenancy. Now, there's obviously a decision that you've made to decide to put this property on the rental market rather than sell it. And it sounds to me as though this might be something that you'd be looking to do long term. So why not make the tenant comfortable in that property? Yes, it might cost you a couple of £100 to get some white goods in there, but why not make them really comfortable so that they'll pay long term and stay in the property and look after it? Because that's ultimately what you want as a landlord. Okay, the last thing you want is a tenant that's not paying the rent, trashes the property, and then leaves after it's cost you thousands of pounds to get them evicted, and then you've got to redo the property up in order to let it again or to sell it. So the reason I suggest that you might want to do this is look at what I call seconds appliances. If you go to AO.com or appliances online, you can get very good quality seconds appliances that might have a dent or a knock in the side of them. So they're being sold at drastically reduced prices. They're still pretty much brand new. You still get all the usual warranty, etc., with them. But if it's things like a refrigerator that's going to go under the worktop, or again a washing machine that's going to go under a worktop, you're never going to see the dent or the knock in it or anything like that. But the point is, you're buying it for a fraction of the price as you would be new white goods and appliances. You can also maybe get a second-hand appliance in from eBay or something like that. But what you will need to do is make sure that these have been pat tested to ensure that they're safe for the tenant, and also that they're in alignment with current electrical regulations. I forget what the exact, I think it's ECEIC regulations. I think that's right. Forgive me if I'm not, but it's you just want to make sure that they're fully compliant with current electrical regulations, so that the tenant's not going to electrocute themselves and you're going to get sued out of everything that you ever own, okay? So that's something to be aware of. And I would personally do it. I have done it in the past for tenants. I've had tenants that have stayed with me for 5 or 10 years as a result of just taking this one small step to look after them, okay? And it shows willing from your side. The property's then complete. There's no arguments. You've done your best. And then if the tenant then decides to be difficult, you can manage them effectively out of the property. But for the sake of what would effectively be, I would imagine, less than 1 month's rent, you've got everything in place, the tenant's happy, and then you can carry on, with your life with a peace of mind knowing that a managing agent is looking after the property and the tenant's happy. All right. So I hope that makes sense, Ravi. That's exactly what I would do in your situation. And hopefully that will ensure your relationship is as smooth as possible and everything's okay. All right. So best of luck with that. All right, moving on. A question here is coming from Harpreet. Hi there, Harpreet. Thank you for your question. So Harpreet says, we were using a large conveyancing firm to sell our property and have so far paid £500 for services to date. When I emailed my caseworker, I received an auto reply saying they no longer worked at the firm. I've since found out that this firm has gone bust. They are not answering their phones or anything. Their communication is completely zero, and I don't know what to do. Have I lost my money? Is there any process or support for people in my situation? Any help would be greatly appreciated. All right, well, thank you for that question, Harpreet, and I'm really sorry to hear that you have been put in this situation. Unfortunately, it's becoming more common, and I am hearing of people being put in this situation a couple of times, which is really unfortunate. What I would say is that the company that you were working with, and you haven't mentioned who that is, but I would look on their website. There should be some information in relation to their regulatory body, such as the Law Society. And you want to contact that regulatory body and find out what's happening with the transition of the firm. Now, normally in this sort of a situation where a law firm closes it, and it is specific to law firms, those cases will normally be passed on to another law firm to handle and take over. So you shouldn't be completely out of pocket, but I'm not going to suggest that this is going to be a straightforward, plain sailing situation. It isn't. You've got to move quickly. You've got to get in contact with the Law Society, and then you've got to get in contact with the firm that's taken over your case file. And then once you're in contact with them, hopefully they can give you some guidance as to which way things are going to go and how quickly they can jump on things to get your sale through to completion as soon as possible. Okay, the money that you've already paid should be sitting on account, and that money should be sat within what's called a client account within the law firm. So the good thing about legal practice is there is a separate bank account for clients' money versus the bank account that's used for running the firm. Now, again, I'd like to think if it's a large enough firm, as you've suggested here in your question, Harpreet, that your money will have gone into the client bank account, and that should be ring-fenced and protected, and therefore it should be readily available for the next firm who takes over and starts to take over that the case file, and also the cost that you've already paid them or the money you've already paid them, that will then help them to kick off things on your file as soon as possible. It is a bit of a frustration. That's probably putting it mildly in your situation, Harpreet. It is a bit of a frustration, but thankfully there are processes in place to support you and to step in, and that's exactly what I would do in your situation. Get in touch with a regulatory body, have that conversation with them, find out who you need to go to next, and then work with that other company, because you may need to do things like ID checks again. You may need to go through providing some more information up front in order to help them move things along as quickly as possible, rather than them waiting for the case files to arrive and then start to go through all of that information and catch up. It might be easier to start afresh with them and try and fast track the deal through to exchange of contracts as soon as possible. So I'm sorry that you've had to go through that inconvenience, Harpreet, but I hope that gives you some confidence that there should be things in place to protect you and make sure that you're going to be taken care of, even though this unfortunate episode has happened. All right. So good luck, Harpreet. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help, or if you do need, if you do want to, maybe write that money off and then look at changing horses, we might be able to put you in touch with a good quality legal firm that can, again, fast track your deal through to completion with it inside of sort of 5 or 6 weeks. There may be a trade-off, shall we say, in terms of the money that you've spent out, which you should be able to recover, depending upon how the different law firms decide to handle it. But the point being, you might be paying a little bit more to come to work with somebody like us or one of our recommended law firms. But the point is, we can fast track that deal through to completion and drastically reduce your time frame, which should help to compensate, if you like, for all the stress that you've had to endure with this situation. All right, so let me know if you need more help on that, Harpreet. Be glad to help you out, and best of luck. Moving on, question has come in here from Terry. Hi there, Terry. Thank you for your question. Terry says, today our buyer pulled out for no reason. Why are they allowed to do this so close to exchange? The seller whose property we are buying has said they won't put their house back on the market for 2 weeks, but will have to after that if we don't find a new buyer. It already took us 5 months to find the last buyer, so I can't imagine 2 weeks is of any use. Why is there no law to protect sellers from buyers pulling out so late in the process when we have already spent a lot of money on solicitors and searches, all this work and expense for nothing? All right, Terry, well, sorry to hear of your situation there. It is such a frustration in the England and Wales property market with things like this happening. And you're quite right in what you say, is that it can be at the 11th hour and a buyer can change their mind and pull out of the deal, as can a seller also. So there is some flexibility and there is some benefit to it. But it is a massive frustration. And particularly if you're in a chain of more than 2 or 3 properties, you can imagine the upset and the disappointment of trying to, of that whole chain collapsing when everybody's looking forward to moving. Now, a couple of things I want to address here for you, Terry. First of all, it says it took you 5 months to find a buyer initially. What I would do is I'd look at this through a fresh pair of eyes and see what you can do to maybe look at getting a new buyer in a much shorter timescale. And what that means is having a conversation with your estate agent about what you can do to fast track that, finding a new buyer as soon as possible. And usually what that will come down to is price, okay? And there may be some ground for you to reduce the asking price of your property or the price that you're prepared to accept on your property in order to allow a deal to go through as quickly as possible, or to find a buyer at a much reduced price and allow that to all complete quickly. Now, the reason I mention that, Terry, first of all, and nobody likes to talk about, reducing the price of their property, so I'm not singling you out for special treatment here, but you've got to weigh everything up, right? So it's the stress and the heartache of losing the property that you're going to move to, and then all the stress and heartache of trying to find a new buyer, going through months and months of viewings, potentially to be disappointed at the end. If it was possible that the estate agent thinks, look, if we drop the price by 10 grand, I'm throwing these figures around here, but if you drop the price by 10 grand, it might open it up to a new pool of buyers, and then they might feel that they've got a better chance of selling it at that lesser figure. And the good news is you may be able to work with the people that you're buying off for them to also reduce their price, maybe by the full 10 grand, maybe by 5 grand, maybe any other figure in between. Okay. And the reason why you would look at doing that, Terry, is because it saves everybody a lot of stress and hassle. And over the course of the next 20 years, 5 grand kind of isn't going to make that much difference, but it does make a difference right now if you're trying to get moved. Now, a couple of other things I'll mention to you, Terry, as well. Your estate agent will probably go back and talk to the other potential viewers, or the other viewers that view the property, about potentially coming back to either make a second viewing or a third viewing, or maybe make an offer to acquire the property because the property is unexpectedly back on the market. Okay. Now, from experience, I will say that that's actually a bit of a weak approach, because what's happening is that the estate agent's kind of going cap in hand back to the other potential viewers. And the mindset, if you think about it, so imagine you're a potential buyer and you get a phone call from the estate agent that says, oh, by the way, this house is unexpectedly back on the market. Well, the first question is, well, why is it back on the market? What went wrong? Okay. Now, it could be a change of heart, and that's usually the reason that's given by the current buyer. But it also switches on a bit of suspicion in their mind that, well, was there something wrong with the property? Okay. And the reason I'm flagging this up, Terry, is because I talk about a really unique approach in Home Buyer Secrets about how to handle this sort of a situation, in terms of if your property is struggling to sell and you want to get the property sold sooner rather than later. We outline what is called the reverse offer strategy. And this is really, really unique. And I'll give you the nuts and bolts of it, but it's worth reading the book to kind of get your head around what this is all about. But the whole idea is that rather than the estate agent just ringing up past viewers and saying, look, this house is back on the market, would you like to make an offer, or would you like to go and view it? Because the chances are, if they haven't, come forward with an offer, or if they haven't taken steps to arrange another viewing, chances are they're not really that interested. But there is a possibility that if you do the reverse offer, what you're effectively doing is you're going to those previous viewers, not with a phone call, but with a carefully crafted letter that suggests, you feel they would be a really good buyer for the property for these reasons. And you kind of have to go back into your memory bank and recall, well, what did they talk about when they walked around this property? Did they like the garden? Did they like the fact that it's in close proximity to different schools? Did they like the fact that it's going to cut down their commute by, half an hour or 40 minutes a day? Did they like the spacious bedrooms? Was there something else that they felt when they viewed the property, actually, we really, really like this about it? And if they did, then those are the sorts of things that you want to craft into the reverse offer letter. So it kind of goes a little bit like this. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this property, 123 Any Street, whatever it's called, we wanted to write to you because we feel that you would be the ideal buyers for our home. We were very impressed with you when you came around and looked at the property. And we felt that, particularly as you mentioned, that the property, hit these 3 bullet points, you would be the ideal buyer for it. And if at all possible, we would like to look at doing a deal with you. Okay. Now, the psychology is very, very different in terms of a letter or an email going out to that person, because actually it kind of looks really genuine that you're approaching them to say, we feel you'll be a really good buyer for this property, and we'd actually like to take you on as a potential buyer, rather than, sales fallen through, not really sure why, could be a bit of a dodgy property. That's the sort of thing that's going through somebody's mind, right? And then the whole point of that letter, and this is where it gets really juicy, is that you put in the letter something along the lines of, the property is on the market for X, Y, Z price. We would be prepared, because we feel that you're, a suitable buyer for this property, we would be prepared to offer the property to you at ABC price. Okay. Now that may be you're going in at probably your bottom line, or just slightly above your bottom line price that you would be prepared to accept on that property if they were to come forward as a buyer. And the point of doing this, Terry, is that it gets an offer on the table. And it is it is complete reverse psychology. And an offer is now on the table for discussion. And if you've got 2 or 3 potential viewers, all of a sudden you've now got 2 or 3 potential buyers with offers on the table. Now, psychologically, that's a very, very different position to be in. But also, it opens the door very wide for a conversation. Does somebody want to come back to the estate agent and say, well, actually, we really like that property. We didn't think they'd come down to that price. We'd really like to take it on. Or, do you think they might come down a little bit more because it's outside of our budget or whatever? But the point is, you're starting the ball rolling with a conversation rather than just a weak phone call that says, yeah, property's back on the market. Do you see what I mean? And if you're not quite sure, grab a copy of Home Buyer Secrets, go to homebuyersecrets.co.uk, grab a copy of that, have a read about the reverse offer strategy, because that's really going to help you to get this one going as soon as possible. Okay, so I hope that gives you some kind of an approach. A lot of people, they'll do in this sort of situation, Terry, which I don't necessarily recommend, but they kind of get a little bit desperate and they think, oh, well, maybe if I get more than one agent on board, that'll be the way to deal with this. And so they go and get 2 or they appoint multiple agents. So they might have 3 agents working for them at any one time. And I think, again, that smacks a little bit of desperation. Sometimes changing agent can help, but I'm not going to put that on you. Look at the reverse offer strategy first before you consider going down that road, because it may well be that that's the sort of thing that you need to do to just spark interest from a potential buyer, get them on board and get them in through the front door as soon as possible. All right, so I hope that helps, Terry. Best of luck. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help as well. But otherwise, as I say, grab yourself a copy of Home Buyer Secrets and everything is outlined there. And it'll probably give you a number of different ideas. The other thing I will finally say, as well as I've mentioned to 1 or 2 other people, get your protect your pocket policy in place. Okay, it's going to give you so much peace of mind. It's going to underwrite your legal costs and other costs, God forbid, should your deal fall through again. And I honestly, I just think it's a complete no-brainer. Okay, if I was in your position and I was going through this process, knowing the experience that you've just had, it's a complete no-brainer. Spend the 200 quid on it's less than 200 quid for the policy. Get that in place, and then you're home and dry. You don't have to worry about it again. All right. So hope that helps. Best of luck. And as I say, let us know if there's anything else we can do to help. All right. And moving on. Last question here comes in from Anton. Hi there, Anton. Thank you for your question. So Anton says, I bid and won a property at an auction in late 2022 to be sold with vacant possession. It currently has tenants who should have left early December. The auction people said it would definitely be vacated by the completion date, which we agreed would be the 15th of December, because that's when the sale of my property completed and I had my funds. The seller was happy with this, which was confirmed in an email from their solicitor, and we agreed this in the contract. By the 15th, the tenants had still not vacated because their credit checks for their future property kept failing. It is now the 6th of January 2023. I've asked if the contract can be rescinded and my deposit paid back, but told that the auction special conditions override anything stated by the auctioneer and also override the completion date on the contract. The special condition states that completion will take place 5 days after the seller has informed me that the property has been vacated, but that could take forever, years even. I feel cheated. When I raise this, they keep pointing me back to the special conditions, so I am stuffed. Do I have any legal comeback here? I currently live in temporary accommodation. Due to this, I am prepared to wait another month, but beyond that, I'm a loss at what to do. All right, well, thank you for the question, Anton. Quite a lot going on there, so I'm sorry to hear that you're in that position. And just to clarify a few things, Anton, one of the things that I'm picking up on straight away is that I'm not sure if you have gone down what we call a traditional auction route, where you've been in an auction room or you bid online for something, and there's been what we call the traditional fall of the hammer, as it would be within a traditional auction room, or whether you've gone down the road of what we call the modern method of auction, which is something, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of at all. I think it doesn't sit right with me, and I think it may or may not be that situation that you found yourself in. I prefer the cut and dry and of, you're in the auction room, hammer falls, that's it. Everybody knows where they stand. The modern method of auction, I've had to rescue one or two people from that process, and it's been fraught with complications, and all of which I don't think serve either the buyer or the seller. But that's just my humble opinion. I might be completely biased. It might just be the ones that I've looked at, and there may be other better methods out there. But quite frankly, I'm yet to be convinced. Let's put it that way. So where you are in this sort of situation kind of makes it difficult to give me you the best advice, because as I say, I don't know whether what you've got is legally binding or whether it's a kind of an agreement that has been put in place that where you've now paid a deposit and you're kind of waiting for the actual exchange of contracts to happen, because they've given you a certain time frame within which the deal will be done. Does that make sense? And they're writing what they're saying, that the auctioneer's theatre is not legally binding at all. That's what the auctioneers can do. So you're not going to get very far with that. But the point is, if this has all been drafted into a contract and it is a legally binding auction that has been done, I presume that you've used a solicitor to take you this far into the deal. And I would definitely refer this one to them. And what I would suggest would be appropriate would be to serve a notice to complete to the seller and the seller solicitors to get their minds focused that actually we need to get on with this and we need to complete the deal. Because if it's legally binding and you both exchange contracts, there may be a little bit of wiggle room by spurious interpretation of the contract clauses. But the point is, the hold-up in this situation isn't actually your problem. It's actually the tenants in the seller's property that needs to be sorted out. And they need to be taking the relevant action in order to evict them, in order to allow this deal to go through. Now, if they're not prepared to do that, or they're being a bit woolly about it, or you don't feel that actually they're giving this the serious attention that it deserves, then there may be grounds to put some pressure on in order to either get the deal completed, for them to financially compensate you for the delays that you've incurred and the cost that you're now incurring, because it sounds like you're in temporary accommodation. You are actually, because that's what you mentioned in your question. So there may be financial compensation that can take place, or they're going to lose you as a buyer completely because your solicitor has found a clause in the contract that allows you to pull out for whatever reason. Because again, if it's the non-legally binding modern method of auction, then it could well be that you have to sacrifice your deposit, but then you can walk away. It's a difficult one to advise you on. I always look at it in these sorts of situations, Terry, Anton. I always look at it in these sort of situations, Anton, that there has to be what we call a test of reasonableness. And this is something that I believe the courts would look at and say, is it reasonable that you're being asked to be financially penalized for somebody else's lack of action, or somebody not committing fully to the contract terms that have been drawn up? Okay. And you have to look at this in the cold light of day. What money are you exposed to losing? Are there other penalties that might come and bite you on the backside, i.e. because you have exchanged contracts and now you have to be very careful about how you move forward, or not, as the case may be? Or can those financial penalties be put on the seller because you're now being put in a difficult position through no fault of your own? Okay. And the frustration with this, Anton, which is why I'm such a fan of people getting more and more educated in the home buying and selling process, is because these sorts of situations put you in a very difficult, potentially financially penalizing situation. And you haven't actually done anything wrong here. That's the important point. You've bid on the property in good faith. You were told that this sort of situation should unfold, and the completion date would be agreed, and the tenants would move out, and all the rest of it. And it sounds like now, okay, granted, Christmas is a difficult time anyway, but you're 2 or 3 weeks beyond that time frame, and it doesn't look as though this deal's actually going anywhere at the moment. Now, things could change in a heartbeat, but the seller needs to be dealing with the tenants, getting them out of the property, or compensating them to move out as quickly as possible, because there can be other ways to get a tenant to move out of a property, and one of that can be pay them some money and get them to leave. And if the seller's got a way up, either taking you to court and suing you to get you to complete on the property, or paying away the pain and just paying maybe £1,000 to the tenants to get them to leave, that might be a better way of dealing with it. Okay, so there's a couple of conversations to have here, I think, Anton. First of all, talk to your solicitor, see what they can do. It may well be that the notice to complete is the right way to go with things, and that will give usually about 14 days within which the deal has to complete, or there might be a loophole that your solicitor can find that puts you in a much stronger position to turn things round back onto the seller in order to get them to take the appropriate action or financially compensate you for on how to do the deal. It is difficult without a bit more information to guide you on this one, Anton, but as I say, if you want to provide me with more information, I'll happily look at the contract that you signed. I'll happily go a little bit more behind the scenes on what's actually going on here. But I would be, if I was in your shoes, I'd be going down the nuclear road, which is, I'm out of this deal unless things happen, and they happen pronto. I need to see some concrete action of things happening, and blaming it on the tenant or referring me back to a contract isn't good enough. It needs to happen. And if that involves me having to pull out of the deal, and then you guys have to take me to court and sue me, then so be it. But that's me. I can be fairly bullish about these sorts of things, Anton. In your situation, I would probably take it a little bit more gentle, have a more rational conversation with your solicitor before you pull the plug, and you're going to see what your potential liability is in that situation. Otherwise, you could end up in a very sticky situation. All right. So hope that helps, Anton. Best of luck. Hopefully it'll all work out sooner rather than later. One of the things I do want to say, Anton, and this is probably going to sound a little bit wacky after the advice I've just given you, but I have a thing that I don't share this with many people at all. So I'll share it with you now. I don't know why, but it's come to me as something that might help. Life can be pretty stressful, right? And there can be a million things thrown at us at any one time, and can be so overwhelming, and we can get so uptight, and we can be so full of the need to control certain situations that we just end up more and more frustrated and more angry when things aren't running the way that we would like them to. And what I found, Anton, is that sometimes by just surrendering to life, magically somehow things work themselves out and solutions get presented to you, and things magically kind of openings appear where there were no ways forward, or doors open where all the doors were closed, or something happens in such a way that you just get a phone call that says, yeah, you know what, tenants have moved out, we can complete tomorrow. And so there's a great book called The Surrender Experiment, and I'd really recommend you read that, because it has helped me so much to navigate through life, whereas I used to get very worked up and very kind of like, what am I doing wrong? Or, why is this happening? Or this shouldn't be happening, which is sort of going against the flow of life. And it's a bit more of a spiritual approach to life, Anton, but sometimes relaxing, taking the heat out of the situation, surrendering, going for a nice walk. These sorts of situations, I go for a walk with a dog, I forget about it, I'm just in nature, I'm sitting there enjoying myself, and all of a sudden a solution presents itself, and things work out. It's quite empowering. It takes a lot of faith to do that, and I don't know if you are a bit of a religious man or not, or whether it's a sort of thing that you would entertain. But as I say, read The Surrender Experiment. That book just is so profound. Michael Singer, I think, is the author. That's probably the most profound book in terms of changing my life and giving me a different take on things. So I hope it helps you as much as it helped me, Anton. Best of luck with this all. As I say, if you want me to look a bit more behind the scenes on what you've actually agreed to, let me know, send me the information. I'll happily do that for you. But also going to suggest that you try surrendering as well and see if that brings you a solution. All right. So that's all of the questions that we've had in this week. So thank you so much for all of your contributions. We're here every week doing this, taking all of your property questions that you send in to us, and taking the time to answer it in as much detail as possible, and pointing you in the right direction to the right resources to help you get the knowledge and information that you need. You can send your questions in to us via email, which is happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. You can also go to our website to find a lot more knowledge and information, in our learning center. That's wiggywam.co.uk. That's wiggywam.co.uk. And if you want to go to the learning section on there, put /learn. You can also send your questions in via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at WiggyWam_UK. That's at WiggyWam_UK. And again, we'll be delighted to take these questions in and answer them as we do each and every week. Please also share this with your friends and your family members and your social circles. Share it out on social media. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people every month that need help with their moving journey. And we'd love to be able to be a resource that helps and navigates and guides them through their journey to actually be able to make it a lot less stressful, a lot more fun, and to arm them with all the relevant information that they need to avoid the financial penalties and pitfalls that so often catch people out and cause them to be financially out of pocket or very stressed out from the entire process. So please do consider sharing this with your friends and family in your wider network. And we'll be back next week, which we're very much looking forward to. So that's it from me tonight. Thank you so much indeed once again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. You take care. Bye-bye.